sentiment is a way that we can help mitigate this, hopefully fix it all together. So basically, it is a way for users to be fairly compensated for their data, to guarantee to everyone involved that those users are real users, and to give people back the value associated with their data, which has basically been robbed from them by the tech oligopoly for many years, right? Through centralized social networks and social platforms. We all signed up to these, like Facebook, Twitter, etc., and we are forced to sign these terms of service and privacy policies. And these are what I would call contracts of adhesion, in the sense that they are contracts that we don't really have the option to not sign, right? That's what a contract of adhesion is called. In many legal systems, those contracts are void, right? Because the point of a contract is that you can sign it voluntarily. It represents your consent, your volition. And if you are forced into a situation where you don't have the ability to not sign it, then the consent is not genuine consent. So we all signed up to all these social platforms. We gave them all our data for free. They basically started surveilling us for many, many years and exploiting our data, right, at our expense. And this was really a great injustice, right? It's something that now I think has been normalized, but I think most people still feel that it's pretty messed up. And sentiment represents a solution to this, because on the one hand, we can guarantee that you get the value for your data, but also we can guarantee that all users are real users. So we know that the data is real data by implication. And so the way we do that, it's basically framed around surveys. You can create surveys as a user about any topic you like, and those surveys are all verified on-chain on Reality Network. The contents are verified, the computations are verified, the attribution to you is verified, and all of the responses to all of those surveys are also verified, right? So you have a data set that as a totality is verified and attributed to real users. There's more to that than you might think. The importance of Reality here is that it's really the only blockchain where this can happen. There is no other blockchain where we will be able to do this. It's partly due to scaling, partly due to the ability to verify data intrinsically. And so that's a big part of what has enabled sentiment to work. The other part is this legal toolbox that we provide users, where we essentially enable people to exploit their intellectual property properly. You know, the interesting thing about data is that it's like non-rivalrous. What that means is that both you and I can own or possess the same copy, a copy of the same data at the same time, right? So it's unlike, say, a lot of real property where, you know, we can't both drive one car at the same time. And that non-rivalrous property is really a key property of where the value comes from in data. Heretofore, what has been happening is that people would essentially upload their data on online platforms, and once they do, it's gone and it's sold on to other counterparties by the platform, and you basically see none of the value associated with that data thereafter, right? From that point, it's gone. That you've given away kind of your own ability to exploit that data for what its true worth is. With sentiment, provide you with a legal toolbox that enables you to sell the data over and over and over to different counterparties, right? You can sell the same bit of data again and again and again. You can restrict what those parties can do with it, right, via our licensing legal toolbox. And that's really, it seems obvious to me, but I'm an IP lawyer, I'm a privacy lawyer. Traditionally, that was my profession. But I think that most people don't really understand, number one, the value of data as such. People just have no concept of the financial value of their data anymore. Right now, if you want Facebook to not monetize your data, you have to pay them about $600 a year, which is just insane. So that's one big issue. People don't understand the value of their data. Even if they do, they don't really know how to exploit it. They don't have a system or an architecture through which they can license out their data in a way that maximizes its value. And so that's what sentiment provides, right? We give users the ability to control their data, to maximize the value out of it, and essentially to retain sovereignty over it. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay, so let's just recap because you said a whole lot of things there. So in a sense, sentiment is a wrap that's being built on reality that lets real people answer questions about themselves, prove that they're human, that they are the person answering it, and then they get paid in the sentiment token when that data is valuable, right?
Not just the sentiment token. So they'll get paid when data brokers, companies, institutions purchase the data sets. And so we're not, the token serves a very important function in the platform, which we can explain more. But the point is not to give people some reward that they don't really care about. We're paying people. When there is a purchase of a data set on our platform, we essentially divide up that purchase price and we give it to the users, give it back to the users who have provided the data.
So it's fascinating. It's really turns the tide on what's been happening for the last 2 decades on the internet. So in a sense, we're now people are getting ownership over their own data points and then able to verifiably license it, or what you refer to as the legal box. So,
Yeah.
and there's a huge business out there in data brokers. I mean, we all get, if we sign up for something and then we get messages, or if someone's shopping for a car online or something like that, and then they suddenly notice they're getting a lot more ads for it and something like that. So there's a lot of information on companies wanting to know who you are, what you own. Do you have a dog? Do you live in a city? Where do you live? These types of questions so that they can market to you. And this is valuable. And we've been giving it away for free on these social platforms, which are masquerading as these ad extraction platforms while giving us this service, which we all just freely give our time and attention to. So it's really fascinating. Can you speak more to why sentiment at scale is the only place to really build this would be reality? What is unique about reality that would give sentiment an upside for what it's doing?
Yeah, so monolithic blockchains would never scale to the size we would need to process data at the scale we need to. You cannot have fixed block height, atomic smart contract updates. The verification needed, is a separate issue. So first of all, it's the actual data structure we need. The other blockchains wouldn't work, right? For a big data application, and reality is obviously, it is a big data blockchain. And the other thing is being able to prove things intrinsically using the ZK proof system at high speed, right? ZK proofs in the industry are actually very inefficient and slow. Reality's ones, I think we're going to discuss this later, but they're just in a league of their own in terms of generating proofs over data and the computations, proof of the computations over the data. So I'd say those are the two key things.
Really cool. So where are you guys now as we head into 2026? What is on the pipeline for sentiment, David or Brian, in other words, where can people get involved? What's next? If you're going to build out this wrap, was it that anyone who's mining testnet right now on Portal would be easily be able to mine sentiment, or is that further? Can you talk more to that point?
Yeah. So we're onboarding testers now. We have a few people testing already, and you're not going to be running it within Portal. It's on a separate reality testnet at the moment while we do testing, but it's a straightforward process to set it up. And you're essentially spinning up a reality node that has the sentiment application on it. And your sentiment application is communicating with all the other ones via reality and updating. It's updating all the proofs basically in real time. So the goal is to get people on board and to have people earning very soon. This isn't meant to be some kind of dry run. We want people to be producing valuable data sets right away. We want them getting compensated properly for that right away. We've been reaching out to data brokers and other companies as potential purchasers to get them on board on the platform, to get their feet wet and to see if we can provide them stuff that they can't get anywhere else, which we can. And so that's really the goal. So if anyone's listening and they want to get involved, please just ping us in the Sentiment Rap channel and Discord.
Yeah. There's one other interesting point. There's so much fraud on the internet today. Nobody even knows what is real, which is a huge use case for reality. Is this a bot? Is this AI slop? Is this a human? How can Sentiment be so sure that the person answering this is the owner, is the person of that data? What is the verification level for the human?
I'll let David speak a bit more about this, but we do have very sophisticated biometrics that we're using. And so essentially we have proof that this person is unique on the platform. Not only that they're human, but they're a unique human. And then that identity is coupled to all of the answers and surveys that they create and proven. When I say intrinsically, it might sound a bit opaque. It really means we're proving things down to the byte level. We're proving things as provable as something can be in a digital context. So that's the idea. But David might have more to say about the biometrics, which he's been working on.
Yeah, I think you recapped it in a nutshell there, and I think it really kind of speaks to the initial breadth of what it is. But the idea behind the biometrics is to really offset the way that data is being collected now. So if anybody has ever participated in it, any sort of survey or poll, you're just getting some generic link that you then click on and then you fill it out and you hit submit. That's it. There's no verification, there's no understanding of where the individual comes from, and there's no sort of deeper sort of insight to say, has this person participated once or 500 times? And so you can see very quickly the way that things are being handled today is in reality, you really just don't know if you can really trust any of the data because there's a massive opportunity for not only bad actors around the globe that could partake in that, but also internal folks who actually get involved as well. So they could manipulate one outcome to obviously produce some sort of narrative that then they can then drive whatever sort of change within their organization or any sort of outward sort of change there as well. And so the way that we're looking at this is that the way that we have to prevent that is to identify who the people are, not by getting every little nuance into their lives and saying, hey, now I have all this information about you, but mainly how can we ensure that somebody can't come in and create many accounts? And the way to do that to date is to use biometrics. And biometrics, not something where everybody would partake and then there's some sort of centralized server. Everybody kind of owns their own biometrics. It's all hashed, so there's no way anybody can utilize that to their advantage. And so this really prevents, especially when you add some sort of incentivization or reward, and the reward could really ultimately be anything from something in crypto, a Web3 sort of reward, NFTs, or it could be something in the traditional sense, because we need to bring in all participants, not just crypto people, but also folks who just want to obviously provide their data and get rewarded for it. So you got to think of other sort of means of just normal cash incentives, gift cards, whatever it might need to be, discounts, coupons. But yeah, these type of biometrics, they need to be Sybil resistant. So you can't have one person come back in multiple times and just try to get all the rewards for themselves. And that's something that we're working on. And obviously we have a solution that we've already implemented. And eventually we'll do some testing into that once we start coupling that with the reward aspect.
You're muted, Andrew.
Whoops. Okay, really good. Thank you, David, for that. Taking the conversation outside of sentiment. So if we have a rApp building on reality that we've just recently released our part 3 tokenomics, which goes into depth on how reality functions as a generative token model, which is light years different than the rest of the space right now. So how can, Brian, maybe this question is for you or maybe even for Wyatt, but how would it be that sentiment's running and there's more activity on their local rApp? How does that translate in the long run into net buy pressure? In other words, how does that usefulness translate into net as a token sink?
Wyatt, you want a second?
I mean, absolutely. So just to start out, we released the latest iteration of our tokenomics recently, and a shout out to Brian and also our patent as well. Thanks to Brian. That is a global patent that was submitted, which is really cool. And in general, the biggest kind of ask for dApp platforms or chains or whatever. We call ours rApps, but it's essentially just creating some type of a mechanism or a reason for individuals to hold their tokens rather than just dumping them immediately. And that's a really core thing that's in our tokenomics. We're going to be sharing more about that later next year. But sentiment is basically just the next step of creating just some kind of utility for holding onto these tokens. And it really just boils down to creating throughput with access to processing information on the main ledger. Obviously, we don't want to store data on the chain because that's just going to slow everything down. But being able to basically, as we increase the number of these different surveys that and the amount of information that's going to be collected on sentiment, that just creates a reason for individuals who are using the sentiment wrap to mine more net tokens and hold on to those net tokens to essentially speed everything up and compoundingly increase the rewards that they'll receive, both for the sentiment token and the net tokens as well. It was just kind of a high level of what we're achieving. I could really get into it, but I don't want to derail too much because this is kind of a sentiment showcase. So Brian, maybe you can jump in here and talk more from the lens of sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sentiment has very similar tokenomics to reality, so it's hand in glove kind of thing. There are differences which we can go into later because they're associated with a feature that we have coming, this feature in the data marketplace. But I mean, the key principle for all tokenomic design, and something that I think that the entire Web3 space has gotten very wrong, is that you want to lower token velocity in such a way that ties it to utility, the utility of the network, right? Because everything else is attritional. If you're paying other people, i.e. validators, to validate your transaction, you are creating a situation that makes that token more likely to be sold and drives down the price, okay? And so what we want to do in any tokenomic system is actually encourage everyone to use the network for its utility in a way that ties to token holding. And, we talk about this a bit in the white paper, but I really think it's something that the entire blockchain space has not really rocked. It seems everybody has always thought in terms of transaction fees. Transaction fees are kind of problematic in other ways too, because they're subject to variation, they introduce friction, there's lots of problems with them. It's not to say that you can't have them, but the real goal is to kind of create a Schelling point, which is like this unspoken epicenter of agreement amongst all users, that the rational move is to hold and continue to participate via holding, right? I really think people just don't get how important this is. Like, I couldn't emphasize it enough. If you are trying to make all boats rise, that is the principle that matters the most. And it is completely absent in every other blockchain project, right? There's the concept of staking for security, but you rarely hear about the significance of it purely from a tokenomic perspective. And, that's something that we have in sentiment, that's something that there is in reality. And I just think if you take one thing away from this, from anything I've said, it's that.
Oh, wow.
You should all
That was,
Google Schelling point. Sorry, Andrew, what?
yeah, Google's selling point for sure. And I just want to expand on what Brian was just saying, that a lot of places in crypto right now, the way they create value is through these buybacks, which is this cosmetic idea of, oh, we're just going to create artificial buy pressure and the token's going to be worth something. And then people just sell into that, right? Buybacks don't work. And then the idea of validators, what Brian's referring to as pay to validate tokenomics, where in most chains, validators don't need the token long-term. They just receive it as income, right? What does income want? Income wants to always be converted to fiat or stables. So in 99% of crypto, the token becomes a payout rail. It's not required for anything. It's not a productive asset. It's just a payment token. So in ours, and with reality, the key is that we're using the network for utility that is tied to token holding. So the token must be required to access capacity, right? So that is the key difference. a good token is not just a dividend or a reward, it's a capacity right. It's a claim on throughput. It does something. It gives utility. And so under this model with Sentiment and Cyberlead and other wraps that are currently building, they're creating real workload. Now, this workload competes for throughput, and this throughput becomes more scarce. And the scarcity is resolved by token holding. And so net isn't valuable because we're burning some arbitrarily or because it's being distributed to validators. It's valuable because you cannot reliably run wraps without it. And so that becomes this proof of useful work and the profound and expansive generative effect it has within the ecosystem when we even have a couple wraps running, providing real use case. The system, the maths, and the system creates this net token by pressure because the token is needed. It's intrinsic. It does something. Yeah, just wanted to add that on. Anyone have? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. Another thing maybe to add here is that the reason that you have all this pay the validators model in so many other chains is because that they're not really decentralized. You have a bicameral ecosystem where you've got all the ordinary users who are sending transactions or using smart contracts. And then you've got the validators who are doing all the work, right? So invariably, there has to be some kind of compensatory mechanism there where you're paying these, what are essentially service providers. When you have a really decentralized system, everybody should be able to mine. Everybody should be able to be a validator. And that everybody really means everybody. Right? It has to be simple. It has to be possible on devices that are available to the average person, off-the-shelf consumer hardware, right? You cannot require kind of technical skill beyond that which will be required to set up your PC, right? So these kind of things are what reality provides that enable true decentralization and that unlock this tokenomic model, right? Which is more staking holding centric for utility.
I did want to just jump in and also talk a little bit about one of the things that reality offers the world, and perhaps through Sentiment's eyes, we can give an example, which is merged mining. The idea that the computer that you're using or the device that you're using that is mining, let's say net, that could also be mining Sentiment's token because your compute is being shared with the Sentiment's wrap. So you can have the same device mining both at the same time. And as more wraps come on, as much compute power as you have to share that's still relevant to whichever wrap you're sharing with. Can you speak a little bit about that, Wyatt or Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. So inside of our portal app is the ability for individuals to download other apps and run those as native applications on their computers. So what's really cool is that since these things are also incredibly low footprint, as you start to get into RealityNet and enjoy mining, you'll be able to see all of our apps from a dropdown and just download the ones that you care about and start mining those tokens as well, contributing your resources to these various projects and it really essentially just diversifying your investment of resources that are not necessarily financial, your actual clock cycles to these different projects, which you then turn into various bags. So, Sentiment is, one of these ones that are from the drop down. And yeah, you guys should all download it from Portal and start seeing it as your wrap store or something. But yeah. I don't know, Brian. Anything else?
Yeah, no, that's it. I guess something to mention here is the whole index token aspect that was talked about in the tokenomics paper. Net, because it's a prerequisite for, let's not say a prerequisite, because you can mine without net, right? That's a critical part of our philosophy here. You can run a node without any stake and still participate in the validation of the network. But when you require a certain kind of reliability for throughput, when you have a really intensive application, it is helpful to stake net because it increases the rate of snapshots that you're going to be producing. And so when you are doing that and you're hosting these other applications, net is the kind of, you could say, index token of the entire network because it is, let's say, a prerequisite for hosting these other applications, which themselves are generating economic value, right? So you price in the value of those economic activities into net, right? That's what the idea of an index token is. It's like that it is pricing in the collective economic activity of the entire network, because it is the substrate of the entire network. It's how snapshots are produced. That's the idea. This is also something that I think a lot of other blockchain projects have gotten wrong, right? Because they didn't know how to make the token integral to the whole, right? They would have, say, sub-networks in a main chain, and the main chain maybe was important for security purposes, but the economic connection between the main chain and these sub-networks was kind of spurious at best, and it led to many of these sub-networks cannibalizing the value from the main chain, right? And that's obviously not something you want to happen, right? Because the main chain is now part of the security model, part of the infrastructure. You want to find a way to relate the value of these other tokens back to the core token. And that's what that index framing does.
Right. And this is a great example, because the value of, let's say, ETH L2s or in other ecosystems, they don't, or even in, I was studying BitTensor's tokenomics, there isn't necessarily a reflexive, well, it could be argued, but a reflexive flywheel where the net pressure is back on the core ecosystem token. With our flywheel, it's almost like we've learned through 15 years of crypto experiments with tokenomics, which seem to be modeled on capitalism, which had its day in the sun, but with crypto as the framework, we can invent and innovate on creating new structures that are generative in effect. And so exciting to see it come into fruition and alive with us here. Just wanted to also find out if there's any particular questions or anyone from listening. If you want to type, there's a chat box in here. And before we go, maybe Wyatt, if you could share with us what we have on the docket for 2026. What are we excited about? What's around the corner?
Well, I can tell you guys right now that we've had a substantial speed up in reality checks of over 85% in generating our quantum resistant zero knowledge proofs and also validating them. So under 15 milliseconds currently.
Wow.
It's very cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. It's quantum resistant. Yay. So I think everybody should be pretty stoked. And yes, this is the same thing that's also going to be being used in all of our wraps, including sentiment. And yeah, so we're really excited to share that. And we're also really excited to share, just a very clear explanation as to why Net Token has a clear advantage in terms of just being something to just really invest everything, whether it's money, time, resources in and use, and why we're going to really hit some type of economic flywheel in a way that even Ethereum can't really say that it has. So that's going to be coming very soon as well. Obviously, we just launched our tokenomics paper, which really explains all of this from a very low level. But yeah, we're just really growing steam. And obviously, we're launching mainnet, which is great. And, everybody should tell your friends to get involved with testnet right now. I mean, everybody in the audience and everyone there, tell your friends, get everybody to give a download, and really don't miss out, because getting involved early is the most important thing that you can do. And smart money is early money and early clock cycles. So get your people in. And yeah, is there anything I'm forgetting?
That's amazing. We're going to tweet about it soon with the 15 milliseconds. I mean, I think it's even faster than the human eye blinks, right? 100 milliseconds is a blink, and then 15 milliseconds is how fast the brain responds to touch or something like that. It's super.
Yeah. I wish I understood what these metrics really were, memorize shit that, but yeah, I mean it's massive, and it's just worth mentioning that we are using. I don't know how many people are using these quantum resistant zero knowledge proofs, but it's huge, and this was tested on an AI, so that's also very cool too. We should just start putting AI in our title, because we do it all the time. We just don't really tell people that, and
Yeah.
why not? It feels cheesy, but if the people want, that's what we're doing. So let's
Yeah.
do it. Get cheesed.
Yeah.
Get a little cheese hat. I'll go to Wisconsin.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing before we close out, I actually wanted to get cheese, though, golf. Yes. The last thing that before we close out, I actually just wanted for David or Brian, and with regards to sentiment, what can people do right now? Is it that there's testnet node runners or anyone who's listening to this? Where do they go to find out how they could download and help support the network and be early in sentiment?
Yeah, so just ping us in the sentiment rApp channel. It's at the very bottom of the channel panel down here under rApps. We're testing right now. We're going to be onboarding a lot more people now because it's looking good at this point. And it will be good to be early because there's all sorts of interesting, let's say, behavioral economics in sentiment, right? It rewards you for really not only producing data, but curating data. And as you curate data well, you kind of curate yourself as a respondent. You establish your reputation within the system, and your reputation has a direct impact on the payouts that you get, right? So it's, I would say, kind of self-refining economy where we are selecting for the best users who produce the best data and rewarding them, right? Structuring the incentives that way in order to reward the people who do the best work. And yeah, please do get involved. It'd be great to have you. And David, let me know, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's great of what you added, and I think for folks that are listening in to this, that's something that I think everybody should to pay close attention to. Not only to the fact that we're valuing your time and your data, but it falls on your shoulders to also provide the feedback that I think you want to provide in the first place, but you ultimately don't do because it goes on deaf doors ears in the current way that it's being handled in traditional sort of solutions, like a Google form or a Survey Monkey or something to that degree. And so I think it really speaks to the breadth of what sentiment is solving for, because we've all been in that situation where we work for a particular company and something's going awry and you want to voice your opinion, but when you do, you're going to get reprimanded or nobody's going to listen to you, and the problem still remains. And so you don't voice your opinion. We want to solve for that. It's the same sort of aspect when individuals are actually out and about in the physical world, going into a restaurant, and there's some problem that we want some attention to be drawn to, so we can actually make sure that everybody can benefit from a great experience, not just the one person, but all participants within that. And so we don't want folks that will just come in and just satisfy some answers just to get a reward. That's not the intention here. It's really to give you a voice that's been taken from you over the last 2 decades, as Andrew was talking around, and even Brian talking from social channels where we're just giving out our data for free. So when we couple that with ways that we can reward you for your data, and also we can ensure that the data that you are providing is actually good data through a reputation system, that then creates good behaviors. And that's the behaviors that we're looking for, because that type of data and that type of sort of pride in what you're sharing with whatever business community entity it is, that then they can actually take that, trust the data, and impact the business, which then benefits all participants that are actually using their products, buying their products, or getting some sort of service from them as well. So I think it was great what you said, Brian. Just wanted to kind of add that in. And that's why this is it's vastly important. And I hope everybody sees that bigger vision. More of this will start to make a lot more sense as time goes on. And we hope you'll be on the journey and ride with us on that as well.
Really good. All right, guys. This was a really fun first state of reality. Looking to do more of them over time. And yeah, I'm going to be releasing the Oracle ChatGPT link. It's a public link. You don't need to be paying for ChatGPT to use it. And I would love to get feedback. You could DM me or just, let me know your thoughts and feedback. So thank you so much for everyone for participating in our network in these early days. As we build this, future-proof it as best as possible. And it's exciting to be in this with you all, and feels very fortunate to be here. So thank you, and have a happy holidays to you and your families.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Take care.
Thanks, David. Bye.